Dr. Ananda Bhavanani is probably the most talented person I know. The Shastra says that the greatest of births is to be born in a family of yogis. And Anandaji was exactly that. And what a prarabdha karma he came with. He was born really to parents who were fabulous, very well-known yogis, very talented in their own right. But it didn't stop him from trying to do his own outshine bit. So as a medical doctor, he shone. Now, I don't know if some of you know, but he is actually a gold medalist. A gold medalist is one who's a top in marks in an entire region. And imagine how many people there are in India, how many people study medicine, and in a region to be the top marks, how clever you have to be. But then that didn't stop him. He carried on and he studied some more. He studied more on yoga and is now actually a professor of yoga therapy in Pondicherry. And not only that, we find out that he can sing and he's a choreographer. He's one of these people that sort of puts most people to shame. But the very beautiful thing is that he's so humble and he's so willing to share his knowledge. He's written so many books, DVDs, the YouTube is full of him. And yet he comes back when we asked him to come to the yoga festival. At the drop of a hat, he said, of course I'll come. And he came and gave some wonderful talks. And we're always grateful to him for his support. And it doesn't stop. He's here. He's supporting us now with his time. He's in India and he's talking to us there. It's his evening. And he continues to support us in the way that he does. And he has a glorious family, including a daughter, a very beautiful daughter, who sings and hopefully and dances, and hopefully we will get to see her next year at the 2021 festival. So a real classic yogic family that shows what is possible to do when you focus on what needs to be done. So without further ado, let me introduce Dr. Anandaji. He's sitting there patiently, and welcome. Thank you very much indeed for coming along. It's lovely to see you again. And I will leave it to you to introduce your talk and show us and tell us how you'd like questions and how you want it organized. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ramji and Sonali, for this kind invitation. For me, nothing is more special than to share my love and my life of yoga. And whenever I get an opportunity to share, it is a very special day. And every day I share, because for me, sharing is caring. And the more we share, the more we care. The more we care, the more we share. And it's a very beautiful, positive samskara we start to develop to attenuate the negative samskaric patterns that are so predominant. I remember being with all of you last year, a very beautiful experience, and had planned to come with my daughter Divya Priya this year. And then the universe said, you don't know my plan. And so we have bowed down to the universe's plan. But despite that, we still continue. And it's wonderful the way these talks have been going on. I think this is the sign of true yoga, that come what may, we fulfill our dharma. We do what we are meant to do. And that is to keep the flag of yoga, the flag of yogic living, yogic thinking. Everyone. Today, I wanted to introduce the concept of mental health and a yogic perspective. What does the Yoga Darshana feel about mental health? What does it offer us? What does it consider mental health? And I put together some slides which I want to share with you. And at the end of the slide share, we'll come back for some questions. You can be typing them in the chat column as they come, or you can wait till the end where, if possible, we can unmute some people. And if not, just read off the questions. We'll see what works. So going straight into the concept of mental health in yoga, let us see where we are. And when we talk about mental health, we are talking about something which is absolutely necessary for all of us. We all are in a state today that we are struggling. We are in fact struggling because of the COVID pandemic. And along with this pandemic, the other pandemic, which is the fear psychosis. And this is why this topic was a topic I felt would serve us well, because it's about health and well-being. Now, before I go ahead in this, I would like to pay my respects, my pranams to the lineage, the grand teachers of this lineage, from Swami Kanakananda Vigu Guru Maharaj, Srila Shri Kamblignana Desiga Swamigal, Shanmuga Swamigal, Shankaragiri Swamigal, my own father Guru Swami Gitananda Giri, and of course my beloved Ammaji, the living Siddha of Pondicherry, who continues to be the light for all of us to grow and glow in yoga. I would like to chant and invoke their grace for today. Om Tadvarampariyaya Vidmahe Jnanalingeshwaraya Dhimahi Tanno Guruhu Prachodayate Om Yoga Mahashrapta Swami Gitananda Giri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. In addition to my own tradition, to which I belong, I'm also representing Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth, one of the top 100 universities, and must be amongst the top 10 when it comes to the health sciences. And we have a dedicated center for yoga therapy, education and research, CITER, for the past decade. And we are focusing on salutogenesis. We are bridging the experimental wisdom of yoga with empirical modern medical science. And more than 70,000 participants, that's a huge number, have benefited from yoga therapy at CITER. We are educating future yoga therapists with courses ranging from postgraduate certificates all the way up to PhDs. And all our students, medical, dental, nursing, allied health, pharmacy, physiotherapy, they get yoga as part of their training program at our university. A lot of research with 110 publications, many national and international events going on at CITER. The focus on salutogenesis is a focus on health. Because what is happening is that most of the time we are focusing on pathogenesis. What are the factors that give genesis, give birth to pathology, disease? Salutogenesis is focusing on the factors that enable health and wellness to manifest. And so the growth curve must be from a pathogenic orientation to a salutogenic one. Salutogenesis comes from the Greek and Latin salus, health, and Greek genesis, source. In combination, the sources of health. And the heart of salutogenesis is a sense of coherence, which is a pervasive, long-lasting and dynamic feeling of confidence that one's internal and external environments are predictable, and that there is high probability that things will work out as well as can be expected. Antonovsky in 1979 had no idea how important this would be for all of us in 2020. This sense of coherence has strong positive correlations to perceived health, mental health, and quality of life. What are the components of this sense of coherence? The first one is cognitive. My world is understandable, a sense that my world is understandable. The second is a coping skill. My world is manageable. And the third is a motivational aspect. My world has meaning. When we can perceive our life and say, my world is understandable, manageable, and has meaning, we are manifesting that sense of coherence, which is the heart of a feeling of salutogenesis. Most of the time, people do not feel their life is understandable, the world around them is understandable. They do not feel they can manage it, and often they don't feel it has meaning. This is where yoga comes in, focusing on salutogenesis, because what yoga is giving us is the capacity to enhance our perspective, understand our life better, find out the tools that we have within ourselves to manage it better, and the philosophy and the psychology and the spirituality of yoga that enable us to find meaning. If we compare salutogenesis and pathogenesis, we see that pathogenesis is focused on what causes diseases, avoiding problems. It is reactive, it is against pain or loss, and prepares one to live. But salutogenesis, on the other side, is all about what causes health. How do we reach our potential? As Swami Vivekananda said, every soul is potentially divine. Our Vedas tell us, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, that we are the divinity itself. We are the universe. We are the ocean in a drop. How do we reach that potential? Salutogenesis is proactive. We want to work on health, not just reduce disease, but work on promoting what can be called positive health. It is for gain and growth, and we discover how to live life fully. We can understand illness and wellness as a continuum, and the treatment paradigm is all about signs, symptoms, disability, and death. But the wellness paradigm expands, salutogenesis expands into awareness, education, growth, and a high level of wellness. That is what we want to move towards, because most of the time we are stuck on the treatment paradigm, forgetting all about the wellness and health paradigm. When we think about mental health, I like to remind people of Swami Ramakrishna, the guru of Swami Vivekananda. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, a truly realized master, he talked about the fabled musk deer. We call it Kasturi Man. Searches the world over for the source of the scent, that musk, which comes from itself. It's amazing that deers going all around trying to find where is this beautiful scent coming from, without realizing it is the source of that beautiful fragrance. We humans are very much the same. We're always searching outside for answers that are within us. When we talk about health, Shushruta, this is all the way back close to nearly 2,000 years ago. We are talking 1,500 years ago, to the father of surgery, who gives us a perfect definition of health. It's a bit utopian, but it's very beautiful. Samadosha sama agnischa samadatum alakriya prasanna atma indriya mana swast ityabhidiyate. Health is a dynamic balance of all the elements, the humors, the normal metabolic activity, and efficient elimination, coupled with a tranquil mind, senses, and a contented soul. What a beautiful definition of health that we can strive for. The Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which is the Yoga Shastra, and Lord Krishna is Yogeshwar Krishna. He tells us, Uddharet Atma Atmanam, lift yourself by your own self-efforts. Don't lower yourself due to the lack of such effort. When you understand yourself, you are your best friend, best bandhu. But if you don't understand yourself, you are the worst ripu, the worst enemy to yourself. Uddhavet atma atmanam, natmanam avashadaye, atmaiva bandhu, atmai. When you don't know yourself, ripu atmanaha, you become your own enemy, ripu. Bandhu, when your friend, when you know yourself. When you don't know yourself, you are your worst enemy. And that is why the concept of a famous statement that says, yoga is the journey of the self to the self, through the self. And this is a very beautiful understanding of yoga. It is the best do-it-yourself kit. Nobody can do it for you. You need to do it for yourself. And so often when clients come to me, I tell them, yoga will help you, but you need to do it. I cannot do it for you, even if I want to. And that is so important that we need to do it for ourselves. It is always nice to remember the fact that a diamond is just a piece of charcoal that handles stress exceptionally well. You know, most of the time we are worried about stress because stress pushes us into distress. That is the negative part, which then becomes pathogenic, disease, disability, and death. But then if you can start to adapt to that stress, if you can start to work with it, you approach that stress and you learn to deal with it, it becomes eustress, which is positive stress that takes you on the salutogenic pathway to better health and wellness. In fact, if you look at this stress curve, you'll see that initially if there's no stress, that is the tamasika guna, nothing happens. Nothing happens here. But then as you start to enhance the stress, what happens in the green? You start to actually enhance your performance. Little bit of stress is good for you, a little more is good. But then if you're not careful, as that you go beyond the optimal stress, remember this optimal stress, you go beyond it, you go into fatigue, you go into exhaustion, anxiety, panic, anger, and breakdown. So this is one of those places where something is good for you, a bit more is good, but then too much of it actually starts to harm you. We live in a world where we think if something is good for you, more of it is better, and if you can get a lot, it is the best, and it is never like that. Something that can actually enhance you to be the best you, when it is taken beyond a limit, that breaking point comes in, and you actually start to break down. In Tamil, our local language here in India, in this part of the world, we say, "Alavukku meerinal amrutamum nanjagum." When taken in excess, even amrita, the nectar of immortality, can become a poison. Even that which is nectar can become poison when taken too much. This is why yoga talks of the YUKTA, the golden mean, which is the central theme of yoga, is that golden mean, finding that sukha sthanam, a point where you are at ease with yourself. That's sthanam, where you are in sukha. And when you move away from it, you go from sukha to dukkha, which is where suffering comes in. That is why the concept of samatvam, which can be understood by the modern concept of homeostasis, equanimity, harmony, and balance. It is an inner stability, that samatvam, even as cyclones may rage on externally, the whole world may be caught up in the fear psychosis of the pandemic, but you can have that stability within you. Because when you lose that stability, you get lost in that cyclone that is raging externally. And again, to understand the yogic perspective, you go back to the Bhagavad Gita. And the concept of sthita prajna, one of the most beautiful concepts of yoga is the concept of sthita prajna. To me, these are the qualities of a mentally healthy person, someone who is in that state of balance. What are these qualities? Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita, someone who is beyond passion, fear, and anger. devoid of possessiveness and egoism, firm and understanding and never thrown off by anything, engaged in doing good for all, friendly and compassionate to all, pure-hearted and skillful without expectation. To me, this is actually the optimal peak level of being mentally healthy. Not just some questionnaire that you tick off and they say, yes, you are mentally healthy or something like that. Are we able to have this beautiful concept, friendly and compassionate to all? Can we have that? Can we be pure-hearted and skillful without expectation? That's Sthita Prajna is such a beautiful concept of actually what mental health is all about. We talk about the Panchakosha, and that is where we realize that if the mind is to be healthy, the body needs to be healthy. Because when the body is sick, the mind is not going to be healthy anymore. And we start to realize we need to work with the body. We need to work with the emotions. We need to work with the mind. We need to work with the intellect. And we need to understand how we are connected with everything else in this universe. Those connections are what make us the best and most amazing version of our own self. In yoga, when we talk about mind, we talk of the four antakarana. The antakaranas are the inner instruments. Anta means inside. Karana is to do, an instrument of doing. And what are these four aspects of the mind? The thinking part, the manas. The chitta, the storage part, the memory bank. Buddhi, the deciding part, the executive function of making a choice. And ahankara, the controlling part, which is the ego. And it is so beautiful, this concept of the antakarana, because we start to realize most of the time we are caught with the chitta, the old memories, and we are reacting to old memories rather than realizing what is happening right now. What is the choice I have? We think we don't have choices. We have a lot more choices than we know. We have the choice. Whenever something happens to us, we have the power, the freedom to choose how we perceive whatever happens to us. Are you going to let it make you or break you? And we start to realize the mana, chitta, buddhi, ahankara, and how amazing they are. And this is why we need to respect our brain. The brain is the tool through which the mind can work. The mind is not in the brain. The mind is not in the brain. It is like small kids looking for the person in the radio set or looking for the person inside the television set. The person is not in the television set or the radio set or in the mobile phone. They are just the receptors. They are just the tools through which the communication can occur. The brain, the human brain, which is one of the most amazing creations, that brain is the receptor for the mind. And we live in mind. It's like the fish living in the ocean. We live in mind. And this is very tough for modern scientists to understand most of the time. But respect the brain. It is divine. Don't turn your brain into a trash bucket. People keep on putting nonsense into the brain, fill it up, and then it doesn't work. So now and then, defragment it, reformat it. That is what yoga is. Yoga enables us to defragment and reformat our hard drive, that brain, every now and then, so that the software of the mind can work properly. This is where we need to clear it out. Patanjali uses the term Smriti Parishuddhau. He says, what do? You have to format the mind and clear out all the associations you have so that the object alone shines. Otherwise, what happens is all your associations to it, they are the ones who are doing it. This is why one has to be very careful here. Because what is happening is we constantly think this part of the brain does that part of the brain does it. It is a fragmentation. It is a reductionist attitude. Yoga is never reductionist. It looks at the expansive perspective, a universal perspective. And integrated perspective is what yoga is all about. This is where science has a beautiful statement, and I love it. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So what you have to do is you have to keep on having these neurons fire together. This is what all the Hatha Yoga is doing. Different parts of the body are used so that different parts of your brain are functioning at the same time. And when you do that, you create beautiful cross connections throughout the right and the left brain. Yoga emphasizes abhyasa, the regularity, rhythm, and repetition that Ammaji talks about in our dedicated practice. When we mindfully and consciously perform the techniques of yoga repeatedly, we create neural pathways that get stronger and stronger with time. You just don't do it once. You have to keep on doing it again and again and again, and you start to nag your brain until it listens to you. You know, again, nagging. You keep nagging your brain until it starts working. It starts doing what it needs to do. That is what is being done. Abhyasa is the regularity, the rhythm, and the repetition. As Patanjali says, Dhirgakala nairantarya satkara ase vito dridabhumihi. That is what abhyasa is. It has to be repeated over a long time and done with a higher purpose. My father Swamiji used to say, you lose that which you don't use. And that is why it is so important to make sure that we are using our body, we are using our emotions, our mind, as they are meant to be used. That is where right useness, which is what righteousness is all about. So if you look at the mechanisms by which this is happening in yoga, the integration of the breath pattern with coordinated smooth body movements, with a conscious focus on the present moment, the now, this kshana that Patanjali talks about, the body gets still, the mind starts to calm down. The breath is steady, leading to the emotions becoming balanced. And at that point, all aspects of human psychophysiological functioning get improved. The healthy improvements in the physical, mental and emotional and social well-being lead to an attainment of the highest physical, mental, emotional, social and spiritual potential. And we enhance our ability to manage the omnipresent stressors and thrive positively in all aspects of life. Where does it all start? Let's go back. Integration of breath pattern with coordinated smooth body movements with a conscious focus on the present moment, the now. That is the core principle where it all starts and goes forward. Now, recently you've heard a lot about super brain yoga, and they talk about what's happening with it. Let me give you a little bit of background here. What they are showing is that exercise can stimulate generation of new brain cells, and that cells can migrate from one area of the brain to another. And my dear friend Satbir Khalsa at Harvard, he says, this is evidence that you can move beyond molding and shaping the mind. You can literally create a new brain. And that's an amazing statement. You can literally create a new brain. And that is why he says, it is beyond neuroplasticity. It is neurogenesis. Imagine what this can do for a world where, as we become older, it is being accepted that we are going to lose our neurons. This is where yoga has to come in, not at that point, but before. Can we start working on ourselves and work on neuroplasticity and neurogenesis so that we are actually doing what would be called super brain yoga? All of this is based on the yogic principle, yato mana tata prana. Where the mind goes, the energy flows. And you can use your mind to change your brain, to change your mind for the better. And what do we call this? Self-directed neuroplasticity. What a beautiful concept that is coming in modern times for our ancient traditional teachings. Now, one of the problems with these teachings becoming popular is that our traditional Thoppu-koronam, where we would catch the opposite earlobe with the fingers, and as we breathe out, we go down, as we breathe in, we come up, and we knock our head, pull our ears and go down and come up. This Thoppu-koronam is done in front of Lord Ganesha's shrine to enhance our capacity for intelligence, to get the brain working, the mind active, and to become the best mindful person you can be. And what happened? This has been again intellectual property theft from traditions, taken abroad and marketed as super brain yoga, put on a format and sell it for $500. I tell you, every school kid in India is taught this, especially if they are not studying well. Everyone who goes to a Ganesha temple does it. This is part of the living tradition. India is not dead. The yoga tradition is not dead yet. Yet people try to take it out of context. And they actually made a mess of it. Because when you come up, you should breathe in. When you breathe out, you go down. And they messed it up. So they have you breathing in and going down, breathing out and coming up. This is what they do. This slide, I've corrected it, okay? I will not put the nonsense they teach on my slide. This is the sensible one. But they repackage ancient wisdom, and because they take it out of cultural context, they mess it up. Thoppu-koronam, really, you connect your right to the left, left to the right. You are crisscrossing your brain, the right brain and the left brain. Your left brain is all about quantity, right brain about quality. You are bringing them together. So how does yoga help mental health? One, you are deepening a sense of perception, enhancing mental alertness and focus, reducing unnecessary distractions, improving attention span, awakening latent areas of the brain, balancing the hemispheric activity, facilitating healthy neuroplasticity, associative understanding of interconnectivity. That's what yoga, yujjate anena iti yogaha, how yoga unites things. And you enhance the inner sense of ease and well-being. Swast, which is well-being, and ease, which is sukham. They are enhanced from within. And that is where confidence, a feeling of being refreshed, invigorated, clarity, balance, strength, these are the type of words that come up to us at that state. I must remind you that the mind is very powerful. And we have been given a very, very powerful tool, which is more powerful than nuclear energy, okay? It is faster than light. The mind is faster than light. The mind is more powerful than any other form of energy we know. And our attention is like a spotlight, illuminating whatever it rests upon. And like a vacuum cleaner, it draws ideas into the field of focused awareness, utilizing areas of the brain, thus enabling neuroplasticity. So directing attention skillfully is the essence of mindfulness and is a fundamental way to shape and reshape your brain and your life over time. So what does this mean? Choose carefully what you think about. You think about negativity, that negativity is going to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. You choose to think about positivity, positivity grows bigger and bigger. That is where pathogenesis is the focus on disease, 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 disease. What are you empowering? Disease. Salutogenesis is a focus on health. What are you empowering? Health, wellness, well-being, swast, that ability to be established in your own self. And that is why we find scientific research abounds with reports on improvements in a sense of well-being and relaxation, quality of interpersonal relationships, improved concentration and efficiency, self-confidence and attentiveness, a lowered irritability level, a more optimistic outlook on life. And it has been found, and many of our studies have seen the similar findings. Yoga reduces the basal anxiety levels. It reduces the anxiety like COVID-19. It is definitely a stress. Can we attenuate our anxiety so that we are not becoming just a bundle of anxieties? We need to be a good human being, not a bundle of anxieties and depressions. And there's a better adaptability towards the environmental and internal stressors. The last 4 months, the whole world has seen both the environmental as well as the internal stressors. And definitely those who have been in the path of yoga have been able to deal with it much, much better. I really appreciate our Indian Yoga Association for this, because it is a group of all the eminent traditions in India. And it has been doing so many programs for people to benefit them during this time, taking yoga to each and every person. And that stimulated me towards the end of March to start a 48-day cycle of the global synchronized global prayer, Vishwa Yoga Prarthana. And we went on for one full mandala, 48 days, 96 sessions, morning and evening. And then that continued, and just a couple of days back, I completed my 108 sessions of online yoga for people around the world. We have been trying to support each other. I think this is the most important message of yoga, and what Ramji and Sonali have done through these type of sessions on Sunday afternoons. So important that the community is supported through these beautiful, beautiful teachings. Because it is not that, oh, this is all philosophy. No, it is practical philosophy. Yoga is practical philosophy where these high ideals are brought and made real. That is so important. A few studies I just wanted to show for those of you who are interested in this type of stuff. They found that the gray matter, this is where the neurons are, there was increased gray matter in the insula. It is a very important area where self-awareness, empathy can be found. The insula is a very important area, and many studies have shown that the interoception, the capacity to go in, have self-awareness, part of Swadhyaya in the Niyamas and Kriya Yoga of Patanjali, and empathy. Such an important aspect of being in yoga is having empathy for not just other human beings, but all living beings. Such a beautiful compassion and love for all. The hippocampus, which is the visual spatial memory part. And what is important here is your hippocampus is where the trigger of emotion comes in, because it has a very vague memory. So what do? Through the meditation, through the yogic practices, and remember, meditation is part of the bigger circle of yoga. Dhyanam is part of yoga. It is not separate from yoga. What you are doing, you are establishing context so that the hippocampus is not reacting, but it is having a more responsive capacity. And you are inhibiting the amygdala and cortisol, which are all the stress. I am going to get him, he is going to get it, I'm going to punch him. All that is the amygdala and the cortisol part. It is coming down. And the most important part, the prefrontal cortex, that is where we work on the Bhru Madhya Bindu, between the eyebrows, the Agya Bindu, the Agya Chakra, all of this is this area where the executive functions are there and the control of attention. The most important parts of the brain to be a good human being. Who is a yogi? A noble human being. And all of these areas of the brain that are enabling you to be humane are being strengthened. And what is happening? They have also found that the cortical thinning that happens with aging in the insula and prefrontal cortex, that is reduced through these practices. This is called Kaya Kalpa. You are retarding the normal degenerative aging process. And so you age like wine should, becoming better with each year that you live longer. More research is telling us that a cyclical combination of yoga postures and rest. This is from S. Vyasa University in Bangalore, which they call cyclic meditation. It is based on the concept of Spanda Nishpanda, activation, deactivation, improves memory scores and decreases the state anxiety. And they found that memory performance was enhanced and memory self-efficacy in older adults. 8 weeks of yoga, executive function is better, working memory is better. And they also found in students, 800 students, improved academic performance, and optimizing stress levels. All of this is telling us that everybody, be it a school child or an aged person or a busy executive, every one of us needs yoga to function at our optimal level of efficiency, to be the best we that we can be. We have seen work with pranayamas like Mukha Bhastrika, the left nostril, right nostril, alternate nostril, and the B sounding Brahmari. We have found amazing work. We have found through our work amazing results. And the modulation of the hypothalamo-pituitary adrenal axis, reduction in allostatic load. All of this is beautiful. It is telling us yoga is the vaccine against stress. Yoga is the vaccine. Everybody's running around trying to find a COVID vaccine. Yoga is the vaccine against stress that is yet to come, and it is the antidote to stress that has already come. So yoga is both the vaccine as well as the antidote to stress. And what we are doing, we are changing our very physiology, our genetic expression. This is called epigenetics. Our hormones, our neurotransmitters, and create a solid and sound foundation for peacefulness and clarity to manifest. Remember, a focused and calm mind is less susceptible to distractions, negative influences, and the omnipresent confusion. I tell you, the omnipresent confusion. Now, when we think of yoga practices, everybody thinks of asanas and doing this and that. Well, there are many things that everybody can do. And this is a beautiful image that I just love. It tells you the right brain, how colorful it is, and the left brain, how analytical, accurate, science, realistic, and quite dry actually. But both are important. I like to say the right brain is the brain which is your Saraswati brain, and the left brain is your Lakshmi brain. The left brain is all about quantitative aspects like Lakshmi, and the qualitative aspects of the right brain is all the Saraswati part. You need to bring both Lakshmi and Saraswati together. That is the goal, because normally they say if Lakshmi is there, no Saraswati. If Saraswati is there, no Lakshmi. Well, try to get both of them to work together. That is what Tenali Raman did. He took intelligence and he took the success in the outer world. He took both the cups and drank both of them. A beautiful story from our scriptures of Tenali Raman. Then alternate nostril, uninostril. When I breathe through my right nostril, I work on the left brain. When I work on my left nostril, the right brain. And if you cannot sit up and do the breathing, just lie down. You lie down on your left side with the right up, your right nostril becomes dominant. You lie down on your right with the left up, whichever side is up, that nostril after about 15-20 minutes will become dominant and the opposite hemisphere is activated. So you want to cool down, lie down on the right with the left up, half an hour of a good rest, you have cooled down. You are feeling very lethargic, you want to activate yourself, lie down on the left with the right up, half an hour later, you are active and raring to go. Simple practices. The yogis did the yoga danda. They had a yoga danda under the armpit to do the same thing. And you had it here, it opened the left brain, had it here, it opened the right brain. And the student knew whether the guru was going to answer spiritual questions or material questions, depending on which side the danda was there. If the danda was under the left side, the guru wanted to calm down and meditate, don't disturb him. If it's under the right, it means the left brain is open. You can go and ask the guru where you need to invest your money. You know, my father, towards the end of his life, used to say, Ananda, nobody's asking any spiritual questions anymore. People come to the guru asking questions they should ask the lawyer, the banker, the accountant, and they come and ask the guru. He said, where are the people asking spiritual questions anymore? And that was 25 years ago, okay? I don't have to tell you the type of stuff we have these days. Very, very interesting aspect. You know, the concept of the yoga danda is a very beautiful concept. And one of my 108 sessions in the morning, I was demonstrating it. And I was talking about this in it. And it's quite an amazing factor when you think about the yoga danda. We have done a lot of work in that. Now, I just wanted to take you off the serious yoga, philosophy, science side and make a little bit of a detour where we go on a lighter side. And it's set of slides that I borrowed from different sources on the net. And I use it when I teach the medical students when they join us to study medicine and try to give them perspective of life. So I use the statement, perspective is all. And we need to remember that everything we see is not the truth, but it's just a perspective. And I think it's worth having this idea develops humility. We talk about the cup being half full or half empty. Well, the cup is never half empty or half full. It is always Purnam. Our Vedas tell us, Purnamada Purnamidam Purnad Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Everything is complete and will be complete after you take the complete out of the complete. The complete still remains complete, for the complete will never be non-complete. This is just an automatic translation I did right now. I tell you seriously, everything is Purnam. You say, no, Dr. Ananda, it is either half full or half empty. It is half filled with water, half filled with air. And it is completely filled with ether. Akash is always 100%. Akash is there in everything. Ether is there in everything. It is pervading everything. And that is why it is the subtlest of the elements. But we are locked with solid and liquid and we start to say half full, half empty. And then you just come into the gaseous state of Vayu and suddenly you realize half filled with water, half filled with air, and already it's filled. It is perspective. Another slide I really love. This is an image I found on the net many years ago. We all know about Pavlovian conditioning. And Pavlov used to ring a bell and feed the dog and then found that just ringing the bell got all the digestive juices going. But look at the dog's perspective. The dog is telling its colleague, watch what I can do. I can make Pavlov do. As soon as I drool, he will smile and write in his little book. This is the dog's perspective of that whole experiment. Pavlov thought he was conditioning the dog. The dog thought it was conditioning Pavlov. You know, with children and parents, we think we are giving them the carrot and stick. They are actually often giving us the carrot and stick, not us. Kids really know how to work the parents around the little fingers. Another beautiful slide. We have an image and people looking at it from one direction see an orange circle with a square. And from another direction, they see a blue circle with a circle in it. You know what? Both are true, but the truth is bigger than both the truths. Another way to understand that. The old story of the blind people and the Indian elephant. And I often think this is what happens when we scientists are studying yoga, that we are just looking at one component and making our findings. So we look at the tail, we say, oh, yoga is a rope. Somebody looks at the ear of yoga and says it is a fan. You know, this is the problem, that we are making it piecemeal. We are breaking it into pieces. Yoga can never be pieces. It has to be one complete piece, never pieces. It is always Purnam. Another slide which I love is this image, a 6 and a 9, which we can easily get confused. The other one that can confuse you is the 0 and the O on your computer screen. The 0 and the O's are also often very confusing. Again, perspective for which side you're looking at it. Another one is this guy marooned on a small island, and he's so happy to see the boat. And the guy in the boat who's been like the life of Pi out in the middle of nowhere, he is so happy to see land. Now, each one has their own perspective, but in this case, both of them are doomed because both of them are going to be now stuck together either in the boat or on that marooned island. But perspective. And this one is the one that takes the cake. This is the Rhino Picasso. And this Rhino Picasso makes these beautiful paintings, and every painting has something in the middle of it, and that is its big horn. And so every image has this big horn. And whenever I show this, I ask people, what is the horn that comes into everything you see? Every picture you see in your mind, everything you see in your life has that horn in it. What is that horn? And the answer is, it is your ego. Our ego is always poking its nose. You know, your nose is a rhino. And actually, our nose is part of everything we see. But because the eyes are placed in a certain way, only when you look down, you see your nose. Your nose is part of your perspective, but we have got so used to seeing beyond our nose that we don't know it is there. But we are constantly poking our nose in other people's business. This is why when we want to have the complete picture, a proper perspective of reality, we need to take ourselves out of that equation, and yoga calls this vairagya, the capacity to take yourself out of the equation. As Ammaji often says, watch yourself without identification, without condemnation, and without justification. Because the moment you identify, you start to condemn and you start to justify. And that is why keep your nose out of everything and everything will be fine. The Rig Veda tells us so beautifully, let noble thoughts come to us from everywhere. Let us expand our perspective. Ano badra katabo yanto vishwataha. And it also tells us, Yekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vatanti. The truth is one. The reality is one. People describe it variously. That is where we expand our perspective. Which is why I ask people that question. What is the perspective you choose in your life? Then comes the question, why do you choose it? That is followed by the next one. How do you choose it? And the last but not the least, are you open to other people's perspectives? Whenever we take a perspective in our life, we need to understand what is it that we are choosing to perceive? Why are we choosing it? How are we choosing it? And are we open to other perspectives? Because when we are open to other perspectives, our perspective becomes a wider one. So when we want to have all of this happen, some yogic tools for mental health and well-being. One is to induce psychophysical harmony. So the asanas, the kriyas, the mudras, the bandhas, we are improving the mobility and flexibility, improving the digestion, the respiration, and a general sense of health and well-being is promoted that helps to release the feel-good hormones, endorphins, enkephalins, dopamine, serotonin, melatonin. All of this starts to make you feel much, much better. We have tools to enhance and balance their emotions, reduce the emotional volatility, swadhyaya, the capacity to turn yourself inward. As Ammaji likes to say, swadhyaya is the yogic selfie. Take a selfie of yourself, look at yourself and start to understand. The pranayama practices, the pratyahara, the withdrawal from the senses, the intense concentration of dharana and the meditational oneness of dhyana, and bhajana and music, where you can just lose yourself and have a release, a positive release of all the negativities that are there in the emotions. A beautiful sense of emotional balance comes. And this emotional balance is so important, which is where again satsanga, sangha comes together, where you have like-minded people coming together. Like all of us are coming together today in the same place at the same time from different parts of the world. And when we come together in a positive manner for a higher purpose, that sangha becomes a satsanga and the emotional balance is brought about. A beautiful sense of ease. We need to work on developing appropriate psychological attitudes. A metacognitive objective view, this is where Vairagya comes in. And that is why Maharishi Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras emphasizes Abhyasa, which is relentless positive self-effort, as well as Vairagya, which is a dispassionate, non-attached metacognitive attitude. He also, in the Niyama, gives us Ishvara Pranidhana, which is the acceptance, the humility to accept the universal plan. We all wanted to have the World Yoga Festival. I wanted to be there with you in person. But the universe has another plan. Can we have the humility to accept it? Can we have the humility to accept that maybe the universe knows something that we as an individual do not know? That is where Ishvara Pranidhana comes in. And changing our perspective through what is called Pratipaksha Bhavanam. One of the greatest tools that Maharishi Patanjali has given us is the tool of Pratipaksha Bhavanam, which is the adoption of a contrary attitude. Whenever there are negativities, whenever the deviants are coming from the subconscious, unconscious and pulling you away from being a human being, they are reducing you to a subhuman state of emotional, bundle of emotional volatility. That is what the deviants, the vitarkas are doing. And what does Patanjali say? The moment the vitarkas are perceived, vitarka bhadane pratipaksha bhavanam, let the pratipaksha bhavanam come in. This is the conscious metacognitive adoption of a contrary attitude. Instead of focusing on negativity, can you focus on the positivity? Can you see the silver lining rather than the dark clouds? Can you see how the glass is 100% filled, half with water and half with air? Can we start looking from a different perspective? When we have a negative experience, can we replace it by creating a positive experience in the same place or with the same people or the similar situation? Can we replace this negativity? Because holding on to negativity hurts us. When you hold on to negative emotions, anger, hate, jealousy, what you are doing is harming yourself. You are not harming anybody else. Negative emotions harm us. They are like poisoning our own well. And that is why, can we start to look at the contrary perspective? Can we see things as if it's a third person seeing it rather than it is me? One of the major issues we all have is identification. And so we have this misplaced identification. And so we say, this is mine. And this is my religion. This is my language. This is my culture. This is my world. This is my family. And because of that, we limit our perspective and it becomes very subjective. The subjective perspective of anything will always make a molehill into a mountain. Subjectivity will make a molehill into a mountain. This is why Patanjali says Vairagya, metacognitive objectivity, where even a mountain becomes a molehill. I like to remind people that for an ant, when you are a small ant, every wave is a tsunami. Every wave is a tsunami for an ant. But if you become a giant, even a tsunami is just a mere wave. And it's a play on the word ant and giant. And for an ant, every wave is a tsunami. Whereas for a giant, even a tsunami is just a wave. This is Pratipaksha Bhavanam. Can you grow? My father used to so often say, he said, you don't solve your problems, you outgrow them. You don't solve your problems, you outgrow them. It is such an important aspect. Because what is happening? We are constantly being the pygmy in front of our problems. And the reason is we have identified with it. We say, this is my problem. You know, I like to tell people, even now you can do it from wherever you are. If you bring your hands and place them in front of your eyes, in your face, you can see nothing but your hands. And even those you will not see because they are too close to focus. Now, if you take your hands back, you start to see everything. Your hands, which blocked out your vision of everything else, when you take them back, you have created a gap. In that gap, your hands, the size of your hands reduces and you see the bigger picture. You see the context. One of the most important things is to see context. We are always reacting to things without context. And later on, we get to know the context and we say, oh, if I had known that, I would not have said that. I would not have punched you in the nose. I would not have been mean to you if I had known the context. If you can learn to see the context, what is the context? You cannot see the context when you are like that. You have to step back. You step back from the problem. You have to disentangle yourself from your attachment to the problem, which is what Lord Krishna, again, yes, Yogeshwar Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita tells us. He says, we have a tendency to attach to our suffering. My problem, my suffering, my disease, look at me. Dukkha samyoga. He says, dukkha, suffering, samyoga. We go and we hug our problems. My problem. We glorify it. He says, dukkha samyoga viyogam. Viyogam means to separate. The one place where yoga is defined as separation. Always we talk about yoga as being union. The one place where yoga is defined as separation, viyoga, is in this verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga sangitam, he says in the Bhagavad Gita. The stepping away from your tendency to attach to your suffering. And most of the time, people are running around saying, my problem, my problem. My father used to say, you don't have problems, you are the problem. The fact that you are there is why you have the problem. You take yourself out of the equation, the problem solves itself. It is a good lesson in humility. You think there's a huge problem in your family, you take yourself out of it, problem solves. You think you have a huge problem at work, take yourself out of the equation, problem solves. Good lesson in humility. We often, our attachment to our suffering, to the problem, is what is making the mountain from the molehill. And that is why to disentangle from that attachment. It is like you put your hand into the electrical socket and you say, I am having an electrical shock, I am having electrical shock. For God's sake, take your finger out of it. We have to disentangle from it. We have to detach from it. That is where Vairagya comes in. That is the capacity of the prefrontal cortex which enables that to happen. All of this is Pratipaksha Bhavana. And this is why Patanjali then gives us very beautiful Chatur Bhavana. He says 4 attitudes made by choice. All of them are based on ahimsa. They all come out of a state of non-violentness. Mudita, Maitri Karuna Mudito Pekshanam, Sukadukka Punya Punya Vishayanam Bhavanatah, Chitta Prasadanam. Chitta Prasadanam is clarity of your mind. Mental clarity and ease and peace and tranquility and equanimity will happen through these 4 attitudes. What does he say? Have friendliness towards those who are at peace, who are at ease with themselves. Maitri towards the Sukha. Have compassion, empathy towards those who are in dukkha. Karuna, dukkha. Be cheerful, mudita, towards those who are being noble and virtuous. And upekshanam, indifference or avoidance of the evil or those who are doing the wrong thing. When you find people who are doing the wrong thing, when you find people who are negative and you choose to be with them, you are going to become negative like them. That is where you need to move away. You need to keep a gap. That gap is where mental clarity comes in. And to be able to consciously think about this, in this situation, with this person, with this event, which is the bhavana, which is the attitude I need to cultivate? Is it of friendliness or compassion or cheerfulness or indifference? And the more you start to introspect, swadhyaya on this, the more the clarity comes, the more the ease comes, and the more the peace comes. This metacognitive, objective view of Vairagya is so essential. Yoga has many, many practices of contemplation, relaxation, and meditation. In the Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga practices, the Trataka, which is concentrated gazing, the pranayama, pratyahara are also useful. And the relaxation, never, never, never forget the relaxation. The central element of yoga, because it is in the relaxation that your body can recharge its cells, and it eases the physical, emotional, and mental tensions. When we are relaxed, we facilitate our own inherent healing capacities. But when we are tense and uptight, what happens? We retard them. Are you going to retard your own healing by being tense? Or are you going to enhance your healing by being relaxed? Who makes the choice? You make the choice for yourself. That is where the power of the metacognitive capacity of the prefrontal cortex comes in. And along with this, what are we doing? Enhancing the spiritual awareness. One of the most important aspects of yoga is the spiritual awareness, which is coming together. Very, very important aspect. We are consciously evolving out of the lower subhuman nature into an elevated human, humane, and divine nature. This is where the yama niyama come in. The yama are there to help us reduce the subhuman nature, and the niyamas enhance the humane aspects of our own self. Reduce the subhuman through the yama. Ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. To reduce the subhuman tendencies, the vasanas and the samskaras. And through the niyamas, saucha, santosha, tapas, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana, you enhance being human. And you become a true, noble human being. And then your divinity starts to manifest. Swadhyaya, satsanga, coming together in spiritual gatherings, the musical bhajana session, the kirtanas, and yogic counseling. We need to remember that oneness is health, duality is disease. And spirituality is a personal connection with our own self, which is strengthened by conscious introspection and atma vichara, self-inquiry. Because when we start to see the oneness, the world today is broken into pieces. The universe is based on unity, not divisiveness. The universe doesn't discriminate. The universe is one. And in oneness, there's no discrimination. And this is why the more you grow in oneness, you start to see the oneness in every being. You see that we are all the same energy. The energy is the same. And you stop limiting yourself to a small subjective personality, and you become an expansive universality who can see the oneness in everything. And that is where we manifest gratitude, respect, and love. Gratitude, respect, and love can only come when we see the bigger picture. When you are focused on the small picture, gratitude, respect, and love will not come, only fear will come. Fear is from the small picture. Gratitude, respect, and love are from the bigger picture. And that is why Nishkama Seva, service without attachment to the action, it enables us to radiate joy, love, and well-being, becoming someone who is a Tejasvi, filled with the Tejas, that beautiful luminosity of the Sattva Guna. We have that Sattva Guna, that luminosity. And that is why relieving suffering and pain, dukkha samyoga viyogam, as I said from the Bhagavad Gita, a conscious disassociation from the union with suffering. And we find that yoga enhances pain tolerance, improves the quality of life. Yoga may not be able to cure everything for sure, but it helps us endure those conditions it cannot cure. And our own departments in the same floor as the palliative ward. And so many people in the end of life situations are admitted there. And I tell you, if not anything else, it helps people to leave the body in a much more elevated, peaceful state of being. Such an important addition to the quality of life in terminal situations. And the caretakers, people who are taking care of terminal patients, they are under so much stress. The caretaker stress is very, very high. And the yoga practices, the yoga philosophy, the yoga teachings, they enable us to understand that we fulfill ourselves best as a human being when we help others. That serving somebody else is a means for you to actually fulfill your dharma. Your life becomes meaningful. You remember sense of coherence in Salutogenesis? Your life starts to have a purpose of service. And this is where simple practices we often do, where we shake. We shake and then we catch hold of the tension and we throw it out. We go, huh? Can I have you all shake a little bit wherever you are? Just shaking your hands, shaking your head a little bit. Give yourself a nice shake. Ah, beautiful. And in case you have taken yourself or me too seriously, we do away with that by going, huh? And just letting go, letting go, letting go. Now catch hold of all the tension, all the stress, take in a deep breath and throw it out. Ah. You feel so much lighter. Everybody who wants to lose weight, do this a lot and there's no weight because all your tensions have been thrown away. Your tensions are the heaviest weight on your shoulders. Throw them out. Nishpanda, Nishpanda, where what we do is we first contract, feet to, you contract your feet, your ankles, your whole body, your face, and hold yourself as tense as possible, hold, and then let go. Beautiful relaxation, where we consciously tense the whole body, tense, and then just... When you do this, you are triggering what is called the relaxation response. Most of the time, we are always triggering the stress response, which to me is not a response, it's a reaction. I say stress is a reaction, relaxation is a response. And what you do, you consciously say, I am going to be tense and then I'm going to choose to let go. You're letting go of it. You are becoming the master of your own destiny by saying, I am letting go of my tension. You are choosing not to hold on to it. Dukkha samyoga viyogam in action here. That is coming into the practice. Another practice we do is turning the head to the 4 directions. Right to the left, up and down. And each time you turn your head, you are learning about a new perspective. When I turn to the right, wow, all of this exists. When I turn to the left, all of this exists. When I lift my head up, all of that exists. And when I look down, all of this exists. And suddenly, I have expanded my perspective from being this horse with the blinkers perspective that we all have. And we have expanded our perspective, 360-degree perspective. Each time you breathe in, you move to the right. As you breathe out, you make a sound. When we move to the left, we breathe in. You breathe out with a sound. Breathing in, lifting the head up. Breathing in, lowering the head. 4 directions, 4 sounds. A, U, E, Akara, Ukara, Ikara, Makara. 4 sounds are made. And each time you breathe in, you're moving away from your perspective. You are shifting your perspective away from yours. You're breathing in and moving away. But as you breathe out, you're coming back and being established in your own perspective. Shifting away, coming back and being established. Shifting away, coming back and being established. Shifting away, coming back and being established. 4 times you have moved away from your perspective. But all 4 times you have come back to your central perspective that now has been expanded to include 4 other perspectives. This is where the practice is a somatic practice. You do it with the body, but you influence the psyche, you influence the mind. So many of the yoga practices, you use the body, the soma, to influence the psyche. These are the somato-psychic mechanisms of yoga practice that then bring about the benefit which is psychosomatic. The mechanism is somato-psychic. You use the body to influence the mind and the psyche. And then the psyche down to the body, you get the benefit. It's like the water cycle. The water evaporates and goes up. And then it comes down as rain. The water evaporating and going up to the sky. and coming down as rain. Using the body to influence the mind, and then the mind comes and settles in the body, and the mind and body become one. They start to work together in a true spirit of yoga. That is where psychosomatic health manifests. The chakra dhyana, a beautiful practice that also I introduced in my 108 sessions. A practice where you just focus your mind at the base center, and as you breathe in, letting that energy come up to the ajna at the forehead, as you breathe out, going back down to the base. Each time you breathe in, coming up to the forehead, and as you breathe out, going back down to the center. Using a count of 6 is a good idea. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then at the end of many rounds of doing this, just letting the energy go up to the top of the head, a few inches above the top of the head, and you just relax with your mind moving up into this Ananda-chara-chara, where the cosmic centers are there, tuning into the universe, becoming one with the universe, moving from the lower centers, the pinda chakras related to the body, into the under chakras, the cosmic energy vortices. Very beautiful practice to help us work with the lower to influence the higher. The Adija Vyadi and the Vyadija Adi. Working with the higher and the lower. As above, so below, as below, so above. Such a beautiful concept. The great Siddhas of South India have given us this concept. They say, what's in the Anda, in the cosmos, is in us, the individual, the Pinda. The Anda and the Pinda, the cosmos and us are one and the same. And we realize it when we are in deep contemplation. A beautiful verse they chant. Andathil ullade pindam, pindathil ullade andam. Andamum pindamum onre, arindathan parkumpode. Andathil ullade pindam, pindathil ullade andam. Andamum pindamum onre, arindathan parkumpode. That cosmos in us, the macrocosm and the microcosm are one and the same. And in the deep state of contemplation, we realize that oneness. That oneness is what health is all about. So to just conclude this part of my talk, and then we'll take a few questions. Yoga is cultivating an appropriate attitude towards life. We have the will, the Ichcha Shakti to change, the Kriya Shakti, that which can be changed. The strength, the Virya, the Shraddha, the faith, to accept that which cannot be changed. And the wisdom, the Jnana Shakti, to know the difference. The Ichcha, the Kriya, the Jnana, they are all powers of the Buddhi, the Vijnanamaya Kosha. An attitude of letting go of the worries, the problems, a greater understanding of our mental process, enabling us to create a harmony in the body and mind, whose disharmony is the main cause of Adi Vyadi or psychosomatic disorders. My father used to say, health and happiness are your birthright. Claim them and develop them to your maximum potential. The goal of human existence is not health or happiness. They are our birthright to be regained. The goal is moksha, liberation, mukti, nirvana, kaivalya. But today people are so busy trying to find health and happiness, we forget why we are here in the first place. We are here given an opportunity to get out of this birth, death cycle. Atma Jnana Pradhanena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Through that Atma Jnana, the Sara Aditya Vyadi, which is to be born again and again, you can come out of it. And yoga is the best way to regain our birthright. and attain the goal of human existence. This is why for me the highest attitude is gratitude. Because it is when gratitude springs in our heart that we will then be able to go on a life of seva, of service. Because we realize we are fortunate, and then that good fortune we want to share with others. That is where the Nishkama Seva comes in. Nishkama Karma and Nishkama Seva. And concluding with a thank you slide from our university, where we have our center, and we are all over the Facebook and YouTube and the website. And I will share this slide share as usual on my SlideShare account. Whenever I make a presentation, I upload my slides onto the SlideShare for people to freely download and use them, because nothing belongs to us. We are only the vehicle. Knowledge, wisdom is universal. It just maybe the jokes are mine, but even them are usually borrowed. So we are just a vehicle that Narayana Bhava, Narayana Arpana Bhava, and Nimitta Bhava. So important to realize we are just a tool. We are not the doer. And when we think we are the doer, that's where the problem starts. The attachment, the ahankara comes in, and then we need an egodectomy. So with that, the presentation part, I conclude. And with Ramji's and Sonaliji's permission, we can take some questions if there are, or any comments that we need.
Thank you so much, Ananda. That was fabulous. That was a really, really good sessions, and so very practical. So lots of techniques there, and I'm glad that the slides, you said that the slides will be available on your Pondicherry website. We'll circulate that link to everyone so that they can get information, and they will know how to get hold of you and things like this. That is so very useful. So if you have questions, you can put them onto the chat line, or you can raise a hand and we can try and find you. And in fact, we can give people the power of self-unmute. So you can now unmute yourself if you wish and ask a question. Are there anyone out there that wants to ask a direct question? A lot of material covered there. People are coming in and saying, what a wonderful way to spend a Sunday. It's a beautiful way to have you come and talk to us. And it's amazing that you do share so much. And so many of your papers pop up all the time, and we get to read it. So a huge amount of material that's available to everyone. And it was very popular when you came to the festival. And we will circulate this again. And people who didn't manage to get to your class will surely come next time. Question, please.
I firmly believe in sharing is caring. And the present time is a time we need to share more, and we need to care more about each other. Right. Social distancing, which is a misnomer, should be physical distancing, makes us think that we should not talk to anybody and we should not smile at anybody. We all need to smile more. We need to laugh more. We need to connect with each other more. And I tell you, the yoga community is doing that so beautifully. Lisa and her chanting, it's just so amazing what you have been doing, sharing there. Saita has been doing what we can. The Indian Yoga Association has been doing. I know so many, Ram and Sonali have been keeping this going so that we have a virtual summit, a virtual festival going at the same time. And so much beautiful sharing is happening. So I say that COVID-19 is actually a catalyst for transformation at a spiritual level to manifest in humanity. So those who choose to use it as a catalyst will transform. Those who don't, it's their choice.
Yes, absolutely. I do agree with you. And one thing that I find is, as I take my dog out for a walk, I actually find that people are smiling more. Because they're at that 1 or 2 meters away, and they're taking a conscious decision to be not near you. I find actually people are saying to each other, "Thank you very much," and there's a smile that's happening, which is beautiful to see. Actually, so there was a question that came in, that says, Sir, how does global synchronized prayer with all our collective power of peace work to fight COVID-19 like situation?
Yeah. You see, basically fear is based on feeling alone. We feel afraid most when we feel we are lonely and we are alone. The moment you realize that you are not alone, but you are all one, and that you have a team with you, fear can be dealt with in a much more positive, confident, strong manner. So when we have a global prayer, when we all work together like this, we are giving ourselves a sense of, I am part of a bigger team, and that fear complex which comes up when you feel lonely and alone can be attenuated and mitigated. So when you feel you are part of a team, you are not going to be as afraid as when you feel you are left all alone. So the prayer is one of the best ways for us to come together. When we chant together, when we sing together, when we think together, when we do the yoga practices together, when we breathe together, well, we are one. And when we are all one, we don't feel lonely or alone anymore. And fear says this team is too strong and it runs out the back door.
Yes, absolutely.
Fear weakens the immune system. Fear weakens the immune system, predisposes you to every infection, not only COVID-19, every infection out there. So if you don't feel fear and you feel safe, I think that is the most important thing as a yoga community we need to do, is give people a feeling of safety. Give them a place, a space, either physical or online, where they can feel safe, they can feel loved, and automatically your immune system's working better.
Good, good. So Judith, you had a question.
Yes. Hi, Dr. Ananda. I was just wondering about Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya.
Yes.
Is that analysis, self-analysis that you do in meditation, or is it something that you do all the time?
It is 24 hours.
Yeah.
24 hours of introspectional self-analysis without identification, condemnation, nor justification.
Okay.
It is a metacognitive SWOT analysis, looking at your strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, but with a metacognitive, non-attached perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Because the moment you identify, you start to say, oh, look at me, how bad I am. And then you have gone into then the justification. I am bad because of. So if you can stop yourself at that identification part and just say, this is a thought. Where does this thought come from? What is it doing? Does it serve a purpose or not? Is it worth going on it or not? Automatically you realize 90% of the thoughts are worthless, and you say, stay outside my door, don't even come inside.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good question. All right. Thank you.
I think we had Om Margaret putting up a hand. She is asking, I think you need to unmute. You're asking about the super brain yoga.
So
I am doing gesture language reading right now. Yes, okay, fine.
Okay.
Yes, yes, Margaret, yes.
Can you remind me of breathing? You hold
Yes.
the ears, you breathe as you go down, and you breathe in as you come up. This one, hold the
Yes.
ears.
The general rule in yoga is whenever you come
How
up,
breathe?
you breathe in as you come up, you breathe out
Yeah.
as you go down. This is the general rule. Unless there is any specific reason, you do the opposite. So here, we breathe in and we come up, we breathe out and we go down. So the inhalation is lifting. You are lifted by the breath. Imagine the breath is lifting you. What does the air do? It lifts the balloon up. So as you breathe in, you are lifting.
Yes.
As
yes.
the air goes out, you are lowering. This is the natural phenomena that should be done. Now people are doing the
Thank you.
reverse, and
Makes sense.
people are doing the reverse, and that can be dangerous. Doing the reverse can be dangerous because if you breathe in and you go down, the pressure you are putting on the abdominopelvic region will later on have people tell you super brain yoga is dangerous, it aggravates piles and prolapses and blah, blah, blah. And super brain yoga is not dangerous. Doing anything wrong is dangerous.
Yes. Okay.
So thank
Thank you.
for asking that.
So
Yes,
Thank you.
Bobby. Yes.
Right.
Thank you so much for this wonderful moment today. I just wanted to say I came across your book Yogacharya when I was studying yoga therapy at SVYASA along with cyclic meditation, these brilliant techniques, and it really changed my approach. I work in the clinical field here in England, and it completely changed my approach. So it's probably the most influential book I found. So thank you for that. Thank you for your beautiful sutras that we are able to listen to of Patanjali that you've sung so beautifully. And my question really today is the concept of salutogenesis. It has been coined not so long ago by Aaron Antonovsky, but it sounds nothing different to what Sushruta and Charaka have been telling us for 5,000 years, that salutogenesis is just another word for Ayurveda, our beautiful science that goes with you. So
Absolutely, Bobby, I agree with you 100%. Swastha. Swastha is to be established in your own essential nature. When you are you are healthy. When you try to be somebody or something you are not, you are unhealthy. That is basically what Swastha is all about. And that is why I talk about salutogenesis, because that is the window through which you get into the modern healthcare system. You speak the language of the modern healthcare system to get into it, but the yogic tradition, the Ayurveda tradition of Swastha has been around thousands and thousands of years. It's like psychosomatic disorders, Adija Vyadhi, Yoga Vashishta 5,000 years ago. Now 200 years ago, if I was in the UK or Europe, and as a medical doctor said your mind can make your body sick, most probably I would have been burnt at the stake or imprisoned in the cell next to Galileo. That is what would have happened. Because people had no idea the mind could influence the body 200 years ago. And 5,000 years ago, we are talking of Adija Vyadhi. So definitely the traditions have it. But we need to find modern equivalence. This has been part of my journey, finding modern equivalence so that people can understand what the concept is. Because the modern healthcare system is not a healthcare system, it is a disease care or disease making system. We are focusing on disease, and there's no health in it. Where is the health in the healthcare system? So salutogenesis gives us a window to get into the system and enable people to start thinking in a different way. And I must thank you for those words on my book. You brought tears to my eyes because you never know who's reading what you put out there or who it is influencing. And just 2 days from now, a new book is coming out by Lee Majeski, my Canadian mom and me, on yoga therapy as a whole person approach to health. Highly recommend, not because it's my book. No, I never recommend because it is mine, but it is worth a good read.
Thank you.
It's wonderful, wonderful. You should bring more copies of that at the festival next year. We'll certainly be able to get, we'll be able to sell.
I'm horrible at business. You know, Ram, I'm horrible at business. I'm horrible at business. Seriously, the business component in me didn't get downloaded when I was born. So it's missing in my software package.
It's nice to know that there is a little bit missing from you because there's so much within you. It's quite embarrassing sometimes talking to you. So I'm glad to say there's a little bit. No, when you can influence just one person in your life, I feel it is a blessing. And you influence so many. You influence thousands in what you do. And we applaud that at every level. Thank you so much for coming into
Thank you for those words, Ram. Because you know what? whenever I talk to the young medical students who come to our university, most of the time I get to give them a talk at the beginning, because yoga is part of their orientation to the university, because we have a center. And one of the first things I tell them, as a doctor, if you can help one person in your life is worth it. Anything after one is a bonus. And this is something that I live by, because I believe that the opportunity, again, it's an opportunity to serve others. Because when you serve others, you are actually serving yourself, because you are no different than the other. There's no other.
Yeah.
As Adi Shankara tells us, Nacha tvam, nachaham. There's no you, no me. There's just one. So when I serve you, I'm actually ultimately serving the same energy that is in you and me.
Yeah, same underlying reality. We are the one. I absolutely agree, and that's why we connect so well. The yoga festival has always been about that, and the feedback that we get from it, we know that there are people who genuinely love it, and just getting one of those emails to us, Shrinali and I, find that has been totally worthwhile to do. So we will continue as long as people come and people like you, teachers like you, come and support us. We shall be here to spread this message. So on a lovely Sunday evening, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been our great pleasure. So pranam to you, and we'll see you again shortly. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.